America, and welcome to Happy Hour with Maestro Tim. I am said Maestro Tim, and already the party has started. I'm on my second or maybe my third, and today I have one of my good friends, concert violinist, and also great pedagogue, the great Brian Lewis. Brian, welcome. Hello,
Thank
sir.
you, Tim.
So,
cheers.
Cheers to you. Before we actually have a sip of one of these, what are you drinking?
I'm having, I guess they call it a sea breeze, cranberry juice and vodka, very specifically Kettle One, 2 ice cubes and a glass from my grandparents. So
outstanding.
There you go.
You know, first time we worked together was in Kansas City 12 years ago or 14, 16 years ago. And back then you were an Enniskillen fan, a wine fan. Now, have you outgrown that, or is that still one of the special place in your heart?
No, I absolutely love Enniskillen. I love it. Being a single parent, there's not a whole lot of time to sit down and have a cocktail. So this is actually really nice for me to get to do that. So yeah, so like that, but not so much time to do it.
Got it. Enniskillen is a Canadian winery, and I was wondering if I don't have any, so I was thinking about maybe I was going to drink some wine or something like that. But then I thought I will try a little bit of this, which is a Canadian style whiskey. And I'm not allowed to like endorse anything on it, but you can probably guess the name of it, because like all Canadians, we are subjects of the Royal Crown.
Right.
So to you, sir. Cheers to
you. Cheers.
Good God. So normally, if this were to happen in a non-pandemic year, where would you be located right now?
I would be in Austin, Texas. I teach at UT, have an endowed position chair there, and it's a great place to live. You know, it's a liberal bastion in the big sea of red. So Austin is a great place to live and to be. And during the pandemic, Texas is not the place to be. They are almost topped 2 million cases of this virus.
Yep.
So we're here in Kansas, in the city I grew up in, and I don't know whether it's one of the concentric circles of hell to go back and live in your parents' house when you're 50, but I just don't know. It could be.
So where in Kansas?
I am in Ottawa, Kansas. It's a friendly farm town of about 11,000 people. We have curfew here for kids under the age of 18. We got liquor by the drink only like in the last 20 years. This used to be a dry county growing up. So it's nice that you're so close to everything, and everything that I did not like about my hometown being not so cosmopolitan is quite excellent during this pandemic. So because there's nowhere, people don't congregate. People go to church, and we're not going to church till this is all over.
Right.
We played for Christmas Eve service, but recorded it 6 days before with masks, and so we felt comfortable. My sister and I played, so that was good. But it's very interesting to not be playing, right? To not go and play Mendelssohn Concerto or Tchaikovsky is the last one that you and I did.
Right. Yep.
Together. And so I miss it. I miss it greatly. So I did go to a music festival about 2.5 weeks ago, in the French West Indies in St. Bart's, and it was a calculated risk. You know, I had my N95 mask, my face shield, my hoodie up, not touching anything, all of this hand sanitizer and wipes. But everybody traveling there to St. Martin, at least, and then to St. Bart's, you have to have a negative COVID test. So, just like Biden did for everybody now, you cannot fly in the United States without it. So I'm happy to see that. Right. Nice.
So anyway, St. Bart. So this is ironic. So you're in the Caribbean and you're hooded up.
Right. I'm going through St. Martin. People are like, aren't you hot? I'm like, oh no, because it was literally like this to touch every door.
Right.
And everything. And once you get to St. Bart's, it's a CDC level 1, because they don't let people on the island unless you have a negative COVID test. And they closed their island early on, so they were able to contain it. And everything's open air. All the restaurants basically are open air, and you just don't go to the ones they didn't feel comfortable with.
Right.
And the concerts are not in a concert hall. They're in one of 3 churches that are there, and they have basically the floor to ceiling windows that they open up. So we sat, one to a stand, masked, So my first violin section was quite long, going into the back when you're only doing one thing. But it was great, and the audience was socially distanced as well. So, and I needed to do it for my own mental health, to be truthful, because I hadn't played since I played last in Costa Rica in February, and then that was just it, and so it's very strange to actually not be playing, so it was very good to go be concertmaster of the orchestra and be concertmaster of the opera orchestra that we do there. So this was my 30th year, I think, going to that festival. So
wow,
it was really nice to get to go do it,
I'm going to press you on that a little bit more, but first I wanted also let our viewing audience know that, just because you're from a small towns can be mighty.
Yes.
I mean, you come from a small town, I come from a small town, and there's also the tie that binds between Iowa City and Ottawa, Kansas, is that there are these hot spots of Suzuki method. I mean, now a few words about what is Suzuki, and your mom, much like Doris Prussel here, is like instrumental in advancing one of the most popular and most important pedagogical tools for string instruction in the country.
Yes. So the Suzuki method is actually quite positive, and lots of research now is supporting Suzuki's ideas that he's been doing for when he started originally doing this. Basically, it's a way that you start young children or older children, or even I think the oldest person my mother ever started the Suzuki method was 78 years old, because she wanted to learn the violin to be able to play hymns in church. So
sure.
It's a real great way. There are 10 volumes of repertoire. And we go in baby steps, so the kids learn how to hold their violin, in a box and a wooden dowel stick. So my daughter Bella has just finished that. She gets to have her real violin February 1st. So
wow.
She's really looking forward to that. But what's great about the Suzuki method, it believes in very positive steps. It believes that there's a Suzuki triangle, which is parent, student, and teacher, because the parent is the home teacher. So there's that ability for people to be involved. So it's not like you drop your kid off and you pick them up after. You are an integral part of it. Suzuki believed very strongly in listening, the ability to ear development, which of course we all know. If you're going to be a great musician, you need to be able to hear things, right?
Yeah.
You're going to be able to hear.
Of course, I'm a conductor, so that's kind of important, but not really.
I said musicians. I didn't say conductors. So I know. Here, cheers to that one.
Sorry, yeah.
Tim.
Okay,
cheers.
I still like you. So where's St. Kitts and St. Bart's? I don't know that area of the world very well, because it seems to me my conducting teacher used to conduct down there, and I'm not sure if it was at your festival.
It was
a Hungarian guy by the name of Imre Palo.
Imre Palo, yes, I played under him for years and years with his checkered pants. Do you remember? Did you ever?
Yes, he wore those like 1960s golf pants that just made you want. I know.
You bought them in an airport anywhere because you're like, wow, there's only one person I know that has that pair of pants, and that was Imre.
The irony about him, I should actually bring him on for a future guest, is that he's the godchild of Kodai.
Oh wow!
And his father was quite a renowned opera singer in his day. And Imre has the voice of galvanized tin going through a bandsaw. I mean, it's he sounds like this when he tries to talk, and it's like yeah. So who knew the bonds? Yeah.
Yeah. It is a very small musical world.
It sure is.
Just people, tend to think, oh, things are far, but we all know each other, right? We all work together. I've worked with you in Iowa. You've been to Ottawa to conduct the orchestra. We've worked together in Kansas City. So, what comes around goes around. That's why one has to be very careful. And I love the expression that, be kind to the people that you see, because that help you go up, because they're the same people that you're going to see on the way back down, right? It's actually a good rule to live by. So
I want to talk to you about balance. This year is unique because there's no playing going on.
Right.
I'm going to show off my T-shirt to you because I want to, because you are a concert violinist and a pedagogue. you know, and sometimes I'm sure those two worlds could collide. So let's start easy. I'm going to stand up and show off my T-shirt here.
Woohoo!
Yeah, you would know a lot about that. The Brian Lewis Young Artist Program. So, what is that?
Brian, the BLYP. I call it BLYP. Everybody calls it BLYAP, and I might have done a different acronym. I know that. Right.
Gesundheit. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Well, what's really cool about this program is it's a music festival for 10 to 12 students. That's it. They have daily lessons. We have more faculty than we have students, and it's really great. So they have a sonata teacher. They have a teacher for showpieces. They have a teacher for Bach. I work on them with concertos, with the piece that they're going to play. And they each have pianists for each of those, obviously, except for solo Bach. So they have 3 pianists. So they'll see me on Monday with that pianist, and on Tuesday, they'll rehearse with that pianist, and I'll see the other 5 kids on that day. And what's really spectacular, and as you know, what happens is their capstone project is to be able to play a movement of whatever concerto or showpiece that they're playing with the orchestra, which is what you got to do, which was so great to have you there because you work so well and positive with these young people. So it's for kids under the age of 18, and what is really spectacular about it is it's tuition free. It is underwritten by the Starling Foundation, which I'm very grateful to them for that support. And it's really quite unique because they basically, during that 2-week period of time, they have more lessons and rehearsals than a college kid would have in a semester and a half. I mean, it is unbelievably intense, and they perform their showpieces and sonatas and solo Bach. So they do get to do that second week, and we take the weekend off. The kids go to like Worlds of Fun or wherever they'd like to go to an indoor swimming pool, and I make them kids, I need to practice. No, you don't. You don't need to practice. Practice in the morning. We're leaving in the afternoon. So to be able to teach the kids that there's also some, the life work balance, if you will, about how to do that. And it's been a really wonderful thing. Now, unfortunately, in the pandemic, it's not real practical to do that.
Right.
And I feel very responsible. Obviously, we hire an orchestra. We've been having it in Fairbanks, Alaska, with the Fairbanks Symphony.
That's fabulous. I knew you were talking about that, and that's wonderful. Yeah.
So it's good to also move geographically to various places. But I, as a musician and as an administrator and just as an artist, I don't want to have to hire an orchestra and then cancel. Right. That seems to be, that's not right to me. We must respect our musicians really well during that time because it's hard for them. And we don't know what it's going to be like at the first week of June. I have no idea. Right. I hope things are there. But if in the university, the Ottawa University is a little apprehensive about wanting to schedule all of this stuff because they don't know. Yeah. I know that the Starling Delay Symposium that I direct at the Juilliard School, we're going to be online this year just because it's the end of May. We don't know where it's going to be. And so that way we can really rely on things, bring in the artists that we want to bring in and do that. So we will all be Zoom experts, of course, by the end of this year. So that's what's...
I really think that it's hard to, it's opposite. This is the best kept secret out there because I wish people really understand, because you really don't understand what you're doing until you see it. We're not just talking twinklers here. We're talking extremely gifted students. We're talking like the mutant school, Dr. Xavier's school for the extremely gifted here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
These kids, I think the youngest kid we had was 10 or 11 years old. But these kids are playing Tchaikovsky concertos, Stravinsky concertos, Shostakovich concerto. Yeah. This isn't for little kids. It's very intense. And the kids, have 4 hours of lessons and rehearsals every day. And then they have a seminar class with me. I get all 12 of those kids together in the evening, and we do various topics, whether we're talking about vibrato or projection, sounding point, and sometimes we do name that violinist. Because I want to be sure these kids know some of the great performers that have come before us, and it's amazing how a lot of these kids really do know. And I'll put up a photograph and. It's projected up there, and everybody knows who Jascha Heifetz and Fritz Kreisler, but then also Maud Powell, for example, who was people don't know her name as much, and they should. I mean, she gave the premiere of, I believe, Tchaikovsky concerto and all of this stuff here in the United States. So we do that, and it's a way to open up a dialogue and talk about various things. Because I don't know if you know it, but I have quite a huge collection of violin ephemera.
Oh, no kidding!
Tons and tons. Surprise, surprise. And it's really, really kind of fun to pull out these things. One of my favorite photos is Jascha Heifetz coming off the tennis court with a cigarette in his hand. You know, you're like, great, you just exercised, time to have a cigarette. You know, some of these things, because you know that generation, hopefully does not go down that path as many musicians did in the past. So
I am checking out our chat room right now,
cool.
so that you know some of the comments that are happening here. Kurt Waskow, who's a good friend of mine, he likes to say, there's an inside joke. He says, "Hi Tim, you know, ... It's an inside joke. All I can say is, yeah, I know, and you know." Susan Anderson, she says, "Hi from Haciendas Las Glorias, margaritas for everybody." Yeah,
yes.
we can get onto that. Yeah, that's right.
Yes. I'm all here. I'm all for the margaritas too. If we were in Texas, we should do margaritas.
Man, you will have to school me on those. John Noyd says he's having a gin and tonic. Tuned in right on time. Randy Reynolds, American IPA, outstanding. Okay. Okay, that's all I can see right now. And
lovely.
So let's get back to balance. So that's your summer gig. That's what you do for fun.
Right. That's what I do for fun.
Yeah. And so you're teaching. So talk a little bit about your duties in Austin and the challenges of balancing that with being a family man, being a father, and also continuing your career as a concert soloist.
Right. Exactly. That is a very difficult balance, to be quite frank. Being a single dad is the single most challenging thing that I have ever done. And adopting this beautiful girl it's been wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful, but it makes me understand, like, she comes with me on the road. There is a great, I was playing the Corleone clarinet concerto. The second movement has this big obligato violin part. And so the orchestra says, "Oh, we'll take care of her." Well, it was the stage manager that was doing it. So literally I'm playing with my daughter and they're like, "Oh, you're on." So I turned and handed Bella to somebody, and I turned and it was John Corleone holding my daughter out like this. Like, what do I do with this?
It's great.
But anyway, trying to find that balance is challenging, particularly in the pandemic, because to be at home and to do homeschooling online for 7 hours for a kid that's 5 or 6 years old, plus needing to do all of my teaching at UT is very difficult. Right now she's in school. They are meeting in person. They divided up the class. Everybody's masked. There are plastic shields. You bring your own bottled water. Nobody is doing anything. And all the food at lunch is prepackaged, so nobody is breathing on anything. So trying to find that balance is easier when I'm in Austin because she's now of a school age. Right. So that she can go to school. I plan my teaching here now via Zoom around my daughter's school. So I get up and we get up at 6:45 or 7 and have breakfast, and then I take her to school. I come back and do some business stuff, and I teach from 12 to 3, and then I pick her up. So that and I've learned that from last semester, because truly I didn't have a great plan. I mean, it was difficult trying to figure out what it is, and I was also not feeling really great either physically. So that's a big challenge too. So but we cook together, we do all sorts of wonderful things together that way. So when I'm at UT, it's easier in a certain way. Now I'm in a house with my brother and his sister-in-law and my sister as well. So there's lots of help. People are around. And it's a safe, we don't lock the door. I mean, I guess we shouldn't broadcast that, but come on down.
So much for your violin ephemera.
Right. That's exactly. That's all in Austin. You're going to have to break in there and get it. So, but anyway, trying to find that balance, and playing has been interesting. And most people are pretty understanding. You bring your daughter, and I'm not asking like the orchestras to pay for the childcare. I just need them to help arrange it. Like, who do you guys know people? And there's only been a couple of presenters who were like, "Well, I don't know," and I'm like, then I'm not coming. I mean, It's just that simple, because she needs to come with me. And when I was teaching at the Cleveland Institute of Music, she would fly back and forth with me all the time. So she's a American Airlines Platinum member. So at the age of 2, she had platinum status at American Airlines. So
So you let something slip earlier on that Bella is about to get her first full-size violin soon?
Yes. I mean,
So-
it's
Yeah.
it's an eighth size violin.
Sure.
But
Okay,
yes.
okay, got it. Now, literally, was it yesterday? I was watching a Late Show with Stephen Colbert, and he was interviewing Serena Williams, the tennis star.
Yes.
And she was talking about her daughter, and there was a picture of her daughter with the tennis racket. And how do you feel as a professional, knowing how difficult, challenging, and sometimes awful this business can be?
Yes.
And how do you negotiate that with your child?
Right.
Do you wish that on them?
Right. No, this is a very excellent idea, and I'll tell you guys very honestly, I asked this question to myself. It's a path that is, what's great about it, being a musician and an artist, is that we share things. We look for something higher than ourselves. We look out of ourselves, hopefully, to find what the intrinsic value of Beethoven might be and to share that with people. Bella's going to start the violin. If she chooses not to do that for a living, I am absolutely fine with that. It is it's very important for students and young people to play because it does make connections in the brain. I just read about a whole article that reinforces what we all know, that there are connections in musicians' brains that help with language and help with all sorts of various things that we do. So, and that goes along with the Suzuki method. He did not think, and the reason he founded this method was not to make professional violinists. He was real proud that 80 or 90% of his students went on to be doctors, lawyers, gas station attendants, because we then get connected to something greater than ourselves, right? And that expression is very, very important to be able to do. So that's why I'm having her play the violin, because she can go, like, for me, I can't wait for her to be old enough to play like string quartets, right? Easy Mozart quartets, because playing chamber music is so wonderful for connections and listening and working together, people skills, all of those things are positive. So I am not pushing her in any way, shape, or form to be a musician. That was my choice. It was my mother's choice. And everybody in my family plays the violin. So I got to tell you, the pressure on this little kid, not from me, but from outside sources, is very, well, has she started yet? Well, yeah. What's she playing? The violin. All right, just back off. Just back off, so she's doing well. Hi, Bella.
Oh, there she is.
Say hi?
Yeah, have her say hello. Just wave to everybody.
Say hi to Tim. We're out here on a big program.
There she is. Hello, Bella. Good to see you.
Yeah. So, do you play the violin? Yeah.
Yeah, she does.
Do you also play some guitar? Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
good. So I need your help here, because Kurt Wasko is asking Denny what he was drinking, and Denny didn't respond. So can you just ask, hey, Denny, what you drinking?
Hey, Denny, what are you drinking? Please respond. We must know. This is
we gotta know. Yeah.
Muy importantes. Yeah. Let's choose our language. Okay.
Oh God, that reminds me. Several years back, I went to see the World Cup in Brazil, and we were going past the Algerian team, and they had a fight song that was in 3 different languages. It was like 1, 2, 3, Viva Algerie! It's like, oh, multiculturalism at its best. I was talking to a friend of mine last week. Oh, by the way, Ed, would you mind just filling that up? I've got people. I
love that.
So anyway, I was talking to a friend of mine last week who was saying that one thing that really annoyed him over the pandemic was when they were reading the New Yorker or the New York Times, when they're interviewing a famous conductor and say, well, what are you doing over the pandemic? And they'd come up with these frankly contrived answers of, well, I'm learning Russian, and I'm getting in touch with the cello, and learning the complete works of Mahler and all that sort of stuff, when we all know better.
Right.
So what have you been doing? Have you actually used this time other than just getting past?
Yes.
Actually,
Right.
Have you been learning new rep, or have you just been sort of enjoying the time you have with your family?
Well, one of the most important things that I've done is Master Candy Crush Saga.
Awesome.
Okay? To be honest, I'm like, And I mean, listen, I'm on like 1,380, whatever level that is. I honestly, that's been kind of biding the time. I have taken the time to reconnect with solo Bach because I'm still doing my teaching. So it's been really great to have it up. And, I'm not and it's interesting because you don't have the motivation that, on next Thursday, you're going to play a recital.
Right.
Saturday, you're going to play that concerto. So it's been really kind of fun for me to reconnect and to re-examine it. But no, I'm not learning Russian or anything like that. One of the things, of course, I have done and lots of people have done is rediscover cooking, right? Because we're home, we've got time to cook.
Right.
So we've gotten trying different things. It's been really fun. And this is something that the family does together. So I would say I now cook way more than I ever did, as a single person. You just, you cook a little bit, but you basically go out for dinner or go over to friends to have glasses of wine and little munchies and things like that. So it's been really good that way. I've also taken the time to look at other repertoire, like just go online and see, because we are very good at the canon, right? Our Mozart, our Beethovens, our Stravinsky, but to really start to look, and one of the assignments I gave to my students for over the summer, which was to find a piece by a Black composer, a female composer, or a Hispanic. So we have a Latinx composer as well, so that they add those pieces to their repertoire.
Right.
And I know, of the pieces that I play by all of those people, but it's very interesting to have a new generation understand there's a whole lot of music out there that isn't known just because it's not known, right? Because they weren't allowed to do it. I mean, Fanny Mendelssohn wrote great music. Clara Schumann wrote great music, but who do we know? We know Robert and we know Felix, right? We don't necessarily know those people. So I think that's one of my jobs as an educator, is to be sure that they are exploring repertoire that belongs to themselves, right? Find out something like, obviously you and I did Bernstein's Serenade in Kansas City.
It's funny you say that because literally Andy Anderson, I love you, Andy, call me baby. Did Brian play the Bernstein Serenade with the KCS? Yeah, he was my cover for that. And he remembers, oh my God, tell us the story, because it was the worst winter storm ever that weekend. Oh my God, that was a hell of a week. Yes.
No, it was one of those things. I'm sitting out on my porch in Texas, 75 degrees, no problem. And I get a call from the, saying, there's a blizzard. I don't know if it's going to happen. And even if it does, we're only going to have one rehearsal. Do you know a Mozart concerto? They say to me 2 days before I'm supposed to be in Kansas City. And I said, sure. So I madly get out the Mozart Concerto No. 4 in D major. I rehearsed it with piano and got on the plane. And when I got off the plane, I was told, oh no, we're doing the Bernstein. And and you were so good about time. I remember watching the clock and we put the last note, and literally there were 3 seconds left, and ding.
I just remember I was anywhere short of like holding musicians' heads like this and like spooning notes into their faces. Like, oh my God. I mean, because the Bernstein Serenade, I mean, that's hard. It is hard.
It's very hard for an orchestra because it's hard. I mean, I think Bernstein made it particularly difficult, so the conductor has to really be able to conduct, Tim, I have played that piece with a very rather elderly, very nice conductor who got lost in the middle and just stopped conducting. I mean, he literally just stopped.
Oh my God.
So I'm like cueing with my violin. I'm looking over the cellos. I'm trying this. And we all got, it was fine. It was like, and then the boat was going well. This piece I played a lot. Let's see. I played this with a Russian conductor who had a heart attack in the middle of the piece. And he's like holding his chest. And I'm like, and I turned him between, do we need to stop? He's like, no. So he played all the way through. The paramedics came, gave him oxygen, and he continued to conduct the rest of the second half before being put in the hospital. And I thought, you know what? If I have a heart attack and I'm playing with you, Tim, bye now.
Okay.
I'm going to the hospital.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, exactly. It's not that important. But yeah, Nostrovia, by the way, so you'll be happy to know that Denny Redmond is actually drinking. It just came down. I just lost it. It's off my feed. Some sort of red Irish whiskey or something like that.
Oh, lovely.
I just lost it. He's drinking Redbreast Irish whiskey. We can rest at ease now. So
yeah, thank God.
I just remember that because it wasn't just that piece.
No.
Which was hell. There was the Rachmaninoff Symphonic Dances, which is hard.
Yes,
and then there was also the Bartok Medea's Dance of Vengeance, which is really hard. And we had no rehearsal time. Jesus. So I'm not surprised that the Bernstein gives people a heart attack, because at the best of times. So actually, that brings me to this. So if you've had all these experiences, there are certain things you can't teach a student, like, hey, your conductor's having a heart attack. What do you do?
Right. And exactly. And that's why, like, to circle back to the Brian Lewis Young Artist Program, I get to be there while they're rehearsing, as you know, and guide them like, okay, what are you listening to here? You need to look at the flute player. Just look over in the third movement of Mendelssohn, when the violin and the flute are playing together, just look over. It makes them feel better. If you're playing Berg Scottish Fantasy, you're not standing in front. You need to connect with the harp player in the last movement. And how we talk about how to bow, how to shake hands, how to address people, because it's an important thing for kids to know that not everybody goes by their first name. Okay, that is a conductor. And a lot of places, when in doubt, call them maestro, because that's a proper, respectable thing to be able to do that. And so there's a way to teach it, but you get used to playing as a solo violinist, and you take for granted all of the concerts that you've played. I mean, the first time I got paid to play a concerto, I was 10 or 11 years old, and it was like Mozart concerto. And one of the things that I have done, you asked what I'm doing in the pandemic, I brought some scores along just to read along. I mean, pieces that I don't play, that I thought that would be good. And I do. There's one piece that I've been working on. It's Le Boeuf sur le Toit.
Oh, that's so fun. It's so irreverent. So like Latin.
Exactly. Well,
that's right.
There's a violin version of it with a cadenza by Honegger.
Yeah.
And nobody plays it. So I thought, and I love the orchestral version. So I thought, well, I'd mess around with that. And also Concerto Gregoriano by Respighi, which is, nobody plays it. It's based on, the second movement is Gregorian chant. And a lot of people don't play it because the violin and orchestra are equal parts. They're not, it's not like Mendelssohn or Tchaikovsky, where the violin part has a very prominent voice that's also very well balanced. So I'm learning it one line at a time, not sequentially. It's like, oh, I like that phrase, I'll learn that. Oh, that's hard, skip over that. So there's no sequential thing, but it makes me be able to play. And I really honestly think, Tim, the hardest thing about practicing is opening the violin case.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because once it's open, we do what we do. And when it's closed, it's there. So for my students, how I like to educate them, I will not teach you the Tchaikovsky Violin Concerto unless you own a full score to it. I will not teach any concerto, because they need to know you're not one line with the piano. You have all of these voices behind you, right? So just if you think first violin, second violin, viola, cello, and bass, that's 5 lines, right? 5 potential different lines. And then you get into the wind part. So, you're looking at 14 things. Where are you playing? How are you playing? And I think that's something that I want to really instill in this generation, that you can be prepared. You can know that. And oftentimes, and not with you, but you may go play with a conductor who might not know that piece as well as you do. And your job, Isaac Stern once said to us, he was one of the guest speakers at one of the graduations at Juilliard, and he said, your job when you go out is to make the orchestra sound better. Not for you, to make the orchestra play better. And that's, I thought, was a wonderful way to describe what you do. And that may be to the detriment of you playing that passage perfectly. But he said, if you get everybody to play better, well, there's your goal. You've accomplished what a solo violinist should do, which is be part of the orchestra and be respectful.
Say hello to Violetta Todorova. She's the concertmaster of the South Bend Orchestra. Say hello to her.
Hello, how are you? So glad you could join us. We are having a good time. I haven't had anything to drink in a long time, so.
Violetta, forgive me. Is that your orchestra? I know it's an Indiana orchestra, I'm sorry if I butchered the name of the orchestra, but I know she's an awesome violinist, and I'm just delighted that she's logged in with us. So there's one thing that you do really well. Many things that you do. I often have. It's hard to describe to a layperson, a talented, or even a talented amateur, or even a young, talented aspiring professional, that a really great artist, when they're on stage, telegraphs what they're about to do. And you do this so well. I mean, with one stroke of the bow, with one articulation, I know if you're going to speed up or slow down, and I know where you're going to be in 2 bars, 3 bars from now. So I know where you're going. Not everybody gets that. Do you actually teach that, or I don't know?
I do. I talk to them, and I feel very blessed to have been able to play. have what, 55 or 6 concertos in my repertoire, and I have played probably 49 of them with orchestra. So I feel very blessed that I've been able to do that. But I tell them, you need to breathe here because you need to be with your conductor. Breathing is so important, you know, and sometimes people are just playing, but if you breathe, then everybody, it's like an upbeat, right? As a conductor would do that. So we talk about, even when the kids, now when you play this with orchestra, you need to be on this sounding point. We need to breathe here. I want you to look, this is when you need to really connect with the conductor. And that's very kind of you to say. And many conductors have said that to me also. And so I feel that's something that's so important, breathing, getting the orchestra to be in the right place, and the conductor too, because you are working together. I mean, the age of, you know, and Jascha Heifetz was I mean, like the greatest violinist of the 20th century, right? Mm-hmm. But he doesn't move. I mean, he's there. He's in front of the orchestra, and literally the orchestra is accompanying them. I feel that I am one line of the orchestra part.
Yep.
And I think if you have that mindset, it also helps you not be nervous, right? Because it's not you, it's us.
Right.
And I think that's an important distinction as a soloist, is to be sure that you are engaging your orchestra and engaging your conductor. People will breathe better. It's not that you're hitting people over the head. You're just breathing, and with an articulation, you know, you instantly, with great conductors like yourself, they're able to hear that, you know, they're able to see, okay, great, that's the speed, that's the bow stroke, that's what we're doing. And you react instantly. So playing with great conductors is a real great thing. But it also helps with new conductors that maybe don't have as much experience. The more you breathe, the better they breathe. The better they breathe, the more the orchestra breathes. Right. And so the music comes more to life, because it's just not a note, it's an experience. We're experiencing that moment in time, and then we move on from that. So I think breathing is very, hugely important, and the clarity of bow strokes, you know, because instantly people can match you.
My apologies to Violetta. It's the Fort Wayne Philharmonic. Absolutely.
Yay!
Yeah, she's awesome.
I have played with Fort Wayne. I played with them. That was the orchestra I played with right after September 11th.
Oh my God! Yeah.
Oh yeah. Because most orchestras canceled. You know, there were no cultural events. I think there were about 10 organizations, and Fort Wayne was like, we're not giving in to terrorism. We're going to play the opening concert. So, and it was Tchaikovsky concerto, ironically, that you and I played together last. And it was near impossible. There was not a rental car within 500 miles of New York City. Seriously. And we were in lockdown, right? The city is closed. You can't get in and out. So they finally did open the city. And so I took like a $250 cab ride to a military installation in somewhere in New Jersey. And the orchestra manager drove all the way up to pick me up. And then we drove back, spent the night, like 3 hours a night in a hotel for 3 hours, and then drove. I climbed out of the car. We walked in, we did the rehearsal. And then the next day was the concert. And I remember, literally, I'm a mess, okay, because I've left New York and all my friends, I don't know who's alive that were in the tower. It was very, very challenging, and the orchestra was wonderful. They changed the program, so they started with Fanfare for the Common Man, and then they did the Barber Adagio, and I was a mess downstairs.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Hearing the output, so I literally walked down on stage and like closed my eyes, which I don't do when I play. You know, I'm looking at stuff basically. At a certain point, I needed to focus, because, you know, I was a crying mess, which I've never been before a concert. And so I'm playing, and I've got my eyes closed, and I'm playing da 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 da, and then I was like, I opened my eyes like, oh, I'm playing a concert. I had no idea. It was like da 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 da, and so it was fun. But there was a moment that there was this bit of a glitch, and of course, you know how emotional the second movement is already. I'm crying, the orchestra's crying, the audience is we're all having this very big visceral reaction. And I remember I got done, first thing I did, packed up my fiddle and went to the bar at the hotel, which is very unlike me to go do. Talked to my friends in New York, and I couldn't make, there was no way to get back, right? There's no planes.
Right.
And so they were able to locate one train ticket on Amtrak, and they bought me, and it was one seat. A first class ticket was like $1,200 or something. So I had my own, you know, private bathroom, my own bed, all of that stuff, all my meals prepared. And so those 3 days, the orchestra took wonderful care of me. They made me brownies for the trip home. I mean, they made sure that I wasn't alone, and I had a really great friend there, Jonathan Gunn, who's a clarinet player who was acting principal in Cincinnati, and we were able to snag him to be our clarinet teacher in Austin, so at UT. Awesome. So anyway, I will always have a wonderful spot in my heart for Fort Wayne because they were there, and they have a really great chocolate shop there that make great truffles. So I bought some for myself and my friends and my manager, and I ate every single one of them on the train on the way home. So they didn't know that they were missing it, and it took, that this 9-hour trip took like 18 and a half hours because things were moving so slowly. So I ate every single chocolate. I'm telling you, it was delicious.
Circling back to intent, projecting intent, because I've had many concerts where the soloist wasn't as experienced. They were talented. But I think the crux of what people don't understand is sometimes they're sending signals that they don't know what they're sending.
Right.
That because of I hear that articulation, I start speeding up or I start slowing down. So they're not. They didn't mean it.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
So it's because a lot of people are saying, like, why aren't you watching the soloists? Well, if they are really intent in what they're doing, I don't need to, because it all comes out of the instrument. And this is why it's so great performing with you, because I mean there's just no question what's going to happen in the immediate future and where you're going with it. But if somebody doesn't have that concept, a soft articulation here or the way they breathe into it, I'm hearing a signal to speed up or slow down.
Right.
And it might not happen. And so it's
exactly.
So when I walk off the stage and I'm sweating and I'm in a complete mess, it's usually because I wasn't really in sync to where the soloist was going.
Right.
Yeah.
And intent is very important. Intent of what you're doing. And I keep coming back to breathing, but I don't know if you've ever played a soloist that does the double pump. They're like. Okay, which signal do you want the conductor to take? The first one or the second one?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. Just do the first one, and that's the one you should stick. Yeah, and I break my students of that habit because they're like, okay, I'm ready, and now I'm going to... No. You just got ready. You don't need 2 times to get ready.
Right.
And I call it the double pump because it's like, and it drives conductors crazy when they do that, because it's like, okay, what tempo are you playing, or what do you want from me? And that your job also as a soloist is to be sure that you are communicating with the conductor.
Yeah.
That's you're literally in just to say very pedantically, you're the traffic cop.
Yeah.
Right?
You're
trying to figure who gets to go and who gets to stop. So.
But conductors can do that to their orchestra as well. I will leave the names out to protect the innocent and the not so innocent. And I remember early on in my career, I'm covering for this really famous conductor, and they're doing the opening of the Mendelssohn Midsummer Night's Dream Overture. And basically it's like, bah, and you have to understand, orchestras, the younger they are, the more quickly they are right on the beat, and the older they tend to be, the little farther behind. Each orchestra has a little bit of distance between, here's where the beat is, and then when the sound happens. And so the first time, boom, the orchestra was slightly behind, but it was together, it was perfect. And then the next time they rehearse it to the same place, the conductor gives the downbeat, and the orchestra's a little farther behind, like, but it was together. So what ended up happening is the next time the conductor went, tried to, did a little click on the hand just to catch the delay. So
right.
So then the next time he did it was like, and then the next time it was, and then by the time the concert came around, it was like. It was terrible. So I want to get back to Bach.
Okay.
The greatest composer to ever have lived in my view. But as a musician, as a violinist, or if you're young and you're competing, you can't win. Why? The beauty, to me, there's no wrong way of doing Bach if it's convincing.
Right.
But everybody has such ossified opinions about Bach.
Oh, let me tell you, that is, I talk about my students about this. I'm like, here, I just taught the G minor fugue to one of my students students this afternoon. We were working on it, and we were talking about aesthetics. That generational people have different aesthetics. My generation listened to Nathan Milstein, Grumio, Sharing, all of these great, dead white guys. And so it's really great for them to connect with. We're talking about something as simple as, are you going to roll the chord backwards down to be able to balance towards the melody line that's now in the bass part? My generation all did that. Now everybody rolls them up.
Yeah.
If you listen to Hill on, perfectly clear, absolutely rolled up. So there's this cleanliness. So we talk about, this is where you need to make a decision. These are the things that are non-negotiable, and these are the things that are negotiable. And so one of the things that I have a number of students that have Baroque bows. I have one literally hanging in my studio on a hook. And it's really
next
it's
to the
so,
deer head that you shot.
I've got a Baroque bow hanging there. And I mean, and so they rotate it. I tell them to be super careful with it because it's very valuable. I bought it on eBay for $39.99. So this is but it works great. And I mean, there's a way to hold the bow actually. If you're holding it normally, like you would be here, but if you move your hand up to where the leather is, then you're negating the weight of the frog. So you're starting to get to feel how it sounds. It becomes gentler. The chords are less crunchy. But we're really moving into a time where people really are hopefully going to be exploring Baroque bows and what they do to the sound of Bach. But yes, I have been always at Juilliard when I was having my juries. Of course, you have to play Bach. All of my juries say, "Great, beautiful Bach, too romantic," by this one teacher. Next year, "I enjoyed your Bach, too romantic." Third year, very clean Bach, too romantic. And obviously, okay, you and I have a different aesthetic about this. And I've changed a lot. I mean, I've changed a whole bunch to looking at, what's great, we've got copies of the manuscript. We've got these excellent parts that have been written out with no bowings and fingerings so that people aren't being locked into one way of thinking. The Galamian edition is the one that I grew up in, and you did what Galamian said. If he said to cut off your fourth finger and measure 8, you cut off your fourth finger. That's what it is.
Yeah, exactly. Hey,
my daughter brought me more cranberry juice for my drink.
See, hey, while you're getting more cranberry juice, I'll have my daughter, Ed, fill me up just a little bit. Listen, I'm going to bring this to a little bit of a close. So I want to end with Dorothy DeLay. And literally, my wife was reading a book about a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, about leadership. And the whole point of this book was there generally two types of mindsets. There's the closed mindset and there's the open mindset. Dorothy DeLay, one of the great pedagogues of the 20th century, you got to study with her. Talk to us about her teaching style and how that helped you. Right.
I feel very blessed that in my life, I studied with the two greatest pedagogues of the 20th century. And some of your viewers may not 100% agree with that statement, and that's totally great because there's so many really excellent people. But Suzuki, one of the most important pedagogues who started, 300,000 kids
you
are
actually
playing.
met him.
I studied with him.
Wow,
Between kindergarten and first grade, my mom and I climbed on an airplane. My dad and my brother stayed here, and for 3 months, we lived in Matsumoto, Japan. And there were exactly 5 people that spoke English, 5, gaijin, 5 white people.
Yeah.
That was it. And, Suzuki always taught in a combination of English, German, and Japanese. So you kind of get used to what he was doing. And we lived slept on tatami mats and lived out with a family, walked through rice fields to get to,
wow.
This is 1974. So this is a long time ago. It's not there. But anyway, get back to Dorothy DeLay. She grew up in Kansas. I don't know if you know that. She's from She grew up in very close to Neosho. Medicine Lodge, Kansas is where she was from. And so literally going to study with her was like studying with my grandmother because she was very encouraging, very positive. So like even the comments, like I'm looking at my music here, it doesn't say don't, right? So it just doesn't say, bad shift. She writes good shift, right? So she's psychologically telling us, what do we want? We want a good shift. It's a little bit like some of the teacher training my mom had. If you say to a kid, don't run, what's the action word? It's run. Please walk. You're actually saying walk. You're subtly changing the way people are thinking. So she made us think. And I know that Mr. Perlman once said, I don't want to think, just tell me what to do, right? Galamian told you what to do. Delane wanted you to find out, right? What she wanted you to find out, what do you like about this piece? How are you going to express this piece? Do you know do you know the history of the piece? Are you studying the piano part? All of these things she was expecting us to do. She was a very positive teacher. And we would study a piece and then put it down and do second studies. She understands you don't just study it once and then you're done with it. I studied Mendelssohn Concerto 6 times with her. It's what I played for my Carnegie Hall debut. And she would say, after you played a concerto 50 times, you'll begin to understand it. And I thought, this is such great words. So she was positive with us all the time. Very positive. She was a taskmaster, make no mistake. Just because you're positive and just because you say to a student, that's better than it was last week. I didn't say it was perfect, but you can be positive. As other people would say, that's still not good, right? Well, there are 2 ways to think about it. And she was very encouraging. She had us play a lot, and she I was really blessed to be her assistant. So I got to sit in on all of these people's lessons. Sarah Chang's lesson when she was a little kid, and to see how she worked with different people. And she would say, like, let's say somebody played something out of tune. She goes, well, honey, your concept of C sharp is a little different than mine.
Concept, I love it. Yeah.
And you're like, wow, And she could be very positive. I remember, my freshman, I played some Paganini Caprice and just ripped through it. And I got done. She said, well, Sugar Plum. She called people Sugar Plum. Sugar Plum, you got 95% of the notes. And I looked at her and said, well, thank you. Because I thought that was a pretty good ratio for Paganini. She said, well, sweetie, actually, we want to go for 100%. And I'm like, well, of course we do. So she goes, you just don't know the end of your caprices as strongly as you know the beginning. So let's do from the end. And she sat there, and I played the last note, then the last 2 notes, the last 3 notes, the last 4 notes. She went all the way through and had me doing this. So by the end of that lesson, I could play that Paganini Caprice 100% because she was patient with me to show me. Because, I'm from Kansas, I hadn't really played a whole lot of caprices, and this was a whole new thing, and I didn't really know how to approach them. And so she was instrumental in the way that I began to think about music and like how to even sectionalize things to work on and to understand, if that Paganini Caprice is so hard, you don't have to get it all up to tempo right now. We'll put it away and we're going to get it back out. So her ability to do that, she enabled us. Okay. She really enabled us to make our own decisions and to feel comfortable and to guide them very gently if she didn't agree. And there were times that she and I didn't agree about things, but it wasn't like this, we don't disagree. Well, this is the way I'm thinking about it. She goes, well, that's very interesting. I think about it in this way. So she's not told me I'm wrong. She is accepting what I was thinking before. I mean, it's really great. She's showing leadership by being able to listen to her students, and she would always, I'd ask later on in life, how do you think about uppo staccato? She goes, well, this is the way Perlman does it. This is the way Zuckerman does it. This is the way Nagersland or Sonnenberg does it. She goes, and this is the way, I really think about it. She goes, but ask me in 5 years, I might have changed my mind. She was open to the ability to grow, even herself. I mean, as one of the greatest teachers, she gave herself the ability to grow. And every now and then, she could be not gruff, but when she turns just slightly, boy, you felt terrible because you've done something wrong. I don't know if I should tell you the story, but as her assistant, one of the things I had to do was schedule all the kids, which was a nightmare, okay? Because we're all out playing concerts. She's going out with some of the students. And so, it's just kind of complicated. So I'd written down in my book, in her calendar, 5 kids, and she'd written 5 kids in. So there were 10 kids scheduled in this master class that was going to happen the next day. And I was furious because she's not letting me do my job. So I walked in, and I put her calendar on. She opens it up. She says, well, honey, there are 10 kids in class tomorrow. How did that happen? And I just lost it. Okay. I looked at it and said, I scheduled 5 people and you scheduled 5 people. And you're going to teach every damn one of them. And I threw the calendar on her desk, and unfortunately I came up and hit her in the chest. So I walked out of the room, and I'm like, well, I just ruined my career. So I went back and on bended knee and apologized. I said, Miss Lay, I'm so sorry, but you don't let me do the job that I'm supposed to do for you. And she said, honey, that's okay. Lowered her glasses and said, but never let that happen again. And I was like, yes, ma'am. And I was put out in the cold for about a week, purposefully. I mean, so, and it felt terrible. And then I was welcomed back because she suddenly told me, you know what, you can't lose your head like that. You just can't. And you don't do that.
Ed, that's just a lot like my wife, like your wife too. This is right. I've seen you in masterclass. I've seen you, you channel her very well. by the way, and I mean that as the ultimate of compliments, because you provide a very safe place for young artists. That's wonderful.
Well, thank you. I want them to explore. I mean, that's the age. Try something. Let's see if it works. And I always, as a teacher, and Miss DeLay did this too, and I didn't know she was doing it until I started teaching. If at that cadence there are two ways to do it and both work, let the student choose, right? You're reinforcing that they're making a choice and both of them are successful. So you're not setting the kids up to fail. You're letting them have that ability to choose and to choose something that will work. So anyway.
So for our audiences, I'm going to show the Brian Lewis Young Artists program. Woo-hoo. How can they help? How can they give to your program?
Well, it's quite possible. Right now, things are shut down with our arts organization here. Mm-hmm. But literally, it's to the Brian Lewis Young Artist Program. It's to the Ottawa Suzuki Strings, which is OSSI. It's bucks 99. Actually, it's 819 South Hickory, Ottawa, Kansas, and 66067. Because we can't get into the arts building. We share it with as you know, you've restored such an amazing thing in Iowa. That's amazing. And we also restored the old Carnegie Library to be an art center. So there's visual art. So we've joined forces. The art center is not open because of the pandemic. So people are having only their lessons online, unfortunately. But the Brian Lewis Young Artists Program, it is tax deductible. It's 819 South Hickory in Ottawa, Kansas.
Perfect.
6607. So that's great if you want to help a young artist to achieve some really greatness. That's a really wonderful way to go.
Stay on the line because I want to say goodbye to you after we're done here. But a couple of things. Hey Ed, do you want me to talk here or do you want me to talk in this camera? This camera? Okay. Join us next week. My guest will be Mayor Brad Hart. He's going to come here and he's going to talk about the state of the city. He's going to talk a lot about the challenges that politicians have had to face locally about the pandemic. Talk a little bit about the arts and see what's going on in his life as well. Also want to invite you that the party is not quite over. Right after happy hour ends tonight, friend of the orchestra and past happy hour guest, Dennis Green, who's also the general manager of KCCK, is going to be reading from his sci-fi novels for the History Center. The theme of the reading is the real-life places in Cedar Rapids that inspired locations in Dennis's books. Like, I love Dennis, and he's a great fan of the orchestra. And Dennis is the only guy that I know who's written more books than he's read. Make sure you tell him that. And the Paramount Theater and the Opus Concert Cafe, where we are right now, are two of the locations he talks about. So Dennis says you can continue drinking while you watch. It will stream live at 6 p.m., which is in 2 minutes from now, from the History Center's Facebook page. So make sure you log in there and tell him that I just threw a little shade on him and see what happens. So thank you for joining us for Happy Hour with Maestro Tim. Thank you, Brian Lewis.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next week. All right. Cheers.